Hey guys, it's Verbal Engine 95, recording live from the County Prison Cell, and I've got another Death Battle analysis video here. So this one is one that I'd meant to do, well, not meant to do for a little bit. I came up with it. It seemed kind of cool as like an in-between sort of thing. And the more I looked into it, the more I was like, yeah, okay, this seems pretty cool. I like it because it seems like something that Death Battle would do. It seems like a matchup that they would actually put. Um, and then I did a little more digging, and there's a little bit of disappointment involved, but we'll get into that later. So the fight is Dhalsim from Street Fighter versus Zenyatta from Overwatch. So I like this. We got a very old, very classic character from a franchise that's like I said, very old and very recognized and familiar to a lot of people, especially gaming, which at its core, Death Battle, what is now Death Battle, started as a gaming channel, so they would naturally show a lot of appreciation for gaming over other things. And the other is a very new but very impactful and immediately recognizable character. So a very topical character, I guess I would say, if anything else, not in the political sense or the or the subject matter, but a very okay, yeah, Overwatch is big in its time right now, so it makes sense that they would do that, especially with the giant impact that it's had. So and I felt like this fight would happen. I'm like that, because it also, the other thing I like about it is that it's kind of unexpected. Like, eventually I would think Dhalsim would get into a death battle, but who his opponent would be, blah, blah, blah. Zenyatta seems like, if I had to think who, what Overwatch characters are going to be put into a death battle, right? There's only a certain, not all of them. I think a certain few of them really, stick out as the ones that you would put in a death battle. And, Zenyatta would be really far down the list for me, personally. So having him in a fight that works like this well from a thematic standpoint, if it's a similarity standpoint, I think I really liked it. I kind of like that. It was like, if I hadn't seen this fight or come up with it, or however, I don't really remember how exactly this, pretty analysis came to be, but if I wasn't doing this right now, and then down the line we got a trailer for this fight, I'd be like, I never thought of that, but that's perfect. So, I like death battles like that, where they kind of make you be like, shit, I never thought of that, but that's amazing. So this is, I really, I get it that that's person to person. Not everyone's gonna think in the exact same path. I didn't think Gray versus Esdeath was the right thing for those characters. But and even if it was, I don't think it necessarily needed to happen. But and there's other fights that I could say that about, but other people probably that was the first thing that came to mind for them. So whatever. But on to the fight anyway. So Dhalsim, as we all know, or any fighting game fan should know, that he's a yogi or yoga master from India. And his first appearance came in when he was trying to save, his village by entering the tournament to buy water or buy food or something like that. I think that's his backstory. I'm not entirely sure. More recently, he's kind of become like a mentor role, especially in the comics. Like he's mentored Sagat and Ryu specifically. Kind of like teaching Sagat that fighting for revenge was meaningless and that he shouldn't be trying to kill Ryu just for the sake of revenge against him. And he taught and he mentored Ryu specifically before his fight with Kuma, saying that you're gonna teaching, basically being the one that kind of led him to know the okay, if you have to let go of the Satsui no Hado and you have to become and it eventually leads to the path of the nothingness, but it kind of starts it off there. So Dhalsim really becomes a very important figure, at least in the comics. It kind of connects to the book though, or to the game though, and Well, anyway, his moveset's the more iconic part about him more than his character or anything, obviously. Being able to levitate, being able to teleport, being able to spit fire, in terms of fireballs, fire breath, and all that. But his probably most noteworthy or trait, and the thing that kind of, is the entirety of his playstyle, more or less, is his ability to stretch. Now, this has been given multiple explanations. I know the fire specifically at one point was given the explanation of, it's comes from the same internal key energy source that everyone else uses, but his is, being, enlightened, he's able to manipulate, into fire from, his breath rather than like his hands. And that same chi was used as an explanation for his stretchiness. And in some cases, in the instance of the animated series, he says it's because he practices metaphysics, as in metaphysics being a branch of science and not like a spiritual art form or something, like that he's like a scientist who researches metaphysics. Um, Whatever the explanation is, he's able to stretch his arms out, well beyond human length, like to the point of he can make his arms and legs for that matter, stretch. I think it was like I read something. It was crazy, like 12 or 15 feet or something. He's able to wrap people up in his arms, which actually has to do with an attack of his where he can also contract his arms. And I was getting into the attack here, where he will like reach from a distance, grab you, and then contract super quickly to either pull you in or pull himself towards you and like headbutt you in a kind of slingshot himself at you. He's also been known to like not like choke people out, but he uses this for his flexibility. He's very good at dodging and things like that. Doesn't really happen in the game, but it happens more in like the comics and stuff like that. But not that he needs to, because like I said, he can teleport, so that's kind of weird that I mean, dodge if he can, I guess, but like, he can spam teleportation, so I don't know why that's like why that even matters that much. Um, so yeah, and this guy has fought, like I said, this guy's fought Ryu, he's fought Sagat, he's fought Gil and Seth in canon actually. So like this guy is tangled with some heavy hitters and lived to tell about it. And not only lived, not just survived a beating from them, like he actually like fought them and held his own. So, nobody can say that because he's a pacifist that this guy can't fight. He just fights with peace in mind. I don't know what I've read it. I've read about it where it's like, he fights he fights so that like it takes the well-being of his opponent in consideration, but this is a fight to the death, so why would you, that doesn't really matter that much. Anyway, moving on to Zenyatta. So Zenyatta is from a group, tribe, if you will, of artificial intelligence droids that, in their words, received a spiritual awakening, and upon review and meditation and things like that, um, later considered themselves to be not only sentient, but also in possession internally of a soul. So they kind of formed a monastery and, and spread their religion worldwide and became a giant hit, got millions of followers. And then one of them, well, the one dude died, but then one of them, being Zenyatta, thought like we shouldn't be just teaching people the principles of these, of this, of our religion, because our religion is involved in personalization and it's involved in internalization and really identifying and how you relate to others. So we should be going out there like doing it by example rather than just doing it by you know dogma. So he ends up doing that. He leaves the monastery and then he eventually runs into Genji and helps him out. But yeah, and that's how he gets involved with Overwatch and later becomes a hero. So how does somebody like that contribute? How does like a monk, but not like a Shaolin monk, like a how does a spiritual advisor help with something like an organization? Well, for some reason, they developed these orbs that are like handmade, apparently, by these robots, and they're always floating around them and stuff. And yeah, those things apparently hit like bullets. Like literally, when you look at the damage ratios, it's in comparison with certain characters that use bullets and fucking shurikens and arrows and shit. So they've got the concussive force of that, apparently. They take 3 forms in the game. They take the form of the orbs of destruction, which are just, being a projectile, just launching them at the person and calling them back and all of that. Like I said, for concussive force. The orbs of harmony, which just kind of hover around your allies usually and heal them. And then the orbs of discord, which hover around your enemies and debuff them in game mechanics terms, but in terms of like real life, the explanation is it makes them just more susceptible to damage. I don't know that means it like increases their, reduces the body's natural resistances to damage, if it like more like changes fate and makes them more susceptible. Does it like, make them, does it make them like discord? The orbs of discord makes me think it makes them like, unwilling to fight or something, but that's just, me and taking everything super literally. Yeah, and this guy can also levitate. Of course he can meditate. He also levitates, and he actually does have some degree of combat ability as well. The other thing he has, though, like all Overwatch characters, is he has his ultimate move. I forget what they're actually fucking called. I haven't played Overwatch in like 3 years. He has his ultimate move, I believe it's called Tranquility, where he levitates and becomes, gets like a Shiva form with the multiple arms, or a Vishnu form, I don't know what it's fucking. And, through that, he becomes essentially a higher being. He uses, he becomes like an astral form, where he has to focus and maintain it, but he can't take any damage. He can't use any moves during it, but he can't take any damage, but he also heals himself and, his allies. In this case, it's a one-on-one fight, so he'll just be healing himself. But, yeah. So, I'm gonna get into the Bayer analysis here before I, really get into the reasons of why I'm disappointed with this. So, in this fight, I feel like Dhalsim would probably win. Just because Zenyatta's more made as a team-oriented character. Like I said, Discords and Harmony, the Orbs of Harmony, that's like 1/3 of his total move pool, and that just doesn't really work, because as far as I know, he can't heal himself with those. And also, he just doesn't have, combat experience. He doesn't fight, normally. He's been in battle, but he just doesn't do that. And, also, Dhalsim having, experience fighting just, the heavy hitters of the Street Fighter universe, like Gil and Seth, and surviving, to me, means, what is Zenyatta gonna dish out that's gonna be able to beat Dhalsim? Here's where the disappointment comes in. So I mentioned earlier that Dhalsim's fire is apparently an internal key energy source. Well, it's been confirmed through multiple canons, actually, that it's more than that. Dhalsim is kind of in the way like a herald of the god Agni, and that fire is supposed to be Agni's fire. Though, in the official Japanese character site bio on the website, the flame is ethereal / an illusion, and will only burn the opponent if they believe that it will. Right? And if they have faith that it will not hurt them, then it won't hurt them. Whereas but I don't know how that would work against a machine. Because, like, no pain receptors? So, like, is it actually doing physical damage to you if you believe it'll hurt you? Like, and then there's disappointment on Zenyatta's side because, according to Blizzard, the Orbs of Harmony and Discord, specifically, those are explicitly stated to be non-canon game mechanics. Meaning that outside of the context of the game itself, he does not have the ability to heal or to, like, make anyone more susceptible to damage. So, I've said before that Screw Attack does pick and choose which things they tend to follow, but this fight probably wouldn't happen if those two things I mentioned were actually taken into consideration. So I would imagine that they would consider the fire to be real, and they would consider the Orbs of Harmony and Discourse. So with that being said, I think Dhalsim takes this. Anyway, Verbal 95. See ya.